Did you know Linda Blair had an action career in the 80s? Yeah, action heroine Linda Blair. Guess you can put her up there with the greats, like Sigourney Weaver and Pam Grier. Hey everyone, Lindsay here, and welcome to the first episode of VHS Spotlight, the show where I take a tape from my collection behind me and tell you all about it. And on this episode, we are going to be talking all about Nightforce. Nightforce, a terrorist's own nightmare. Angry about terrorism? Action heroine Linda Blair will make you stand up and cheer for freedom and the pursuit of revenge. When the beautiful daughter of an outspoken anti-terrorist senator is kidnapped by South American terrorists, the senator's hands are tied. He has been campaigning on a platform of refusing to deal with terrorists, and he can't reverse his position even for his own daughter. But others are not so patient. The young girl's friends, led by action heroine Linda Blair and tough guys Richard Lynch and Chad McQueen, take off to the jungles for an explosive rescue mission. Nightforce stars Linda Blair, Richard Lynch, Chad McQueen, and the patron saint of bad movies, Cameron Mitchell.
I can't bend the law to anyone's benefit, God damn it, not even my own!
This is one of my favorite so bad it's good movies. It has everything going for it. Terrible 80s music, bad acting, just a convoluted plot of these white Beverly Hills yuppies sneak into Mexico to save their friend from a terrorist organization.
Stupid. It's just plain stupid.
Oh God. First off, this movie is called Nightforce. The main battle happens during broad daylight. Nothing to do with night. We're introduced to friends Christy and Carla. Carla is played by Linda Blair, and I don't remember the name of the chick who plays Christy. And Christy is the daughter of a senator, played by Cameron Mitchell. And she is engaged to this rich guy.
It's an engagement party, not a funeral. You're hopeless. I mean, I don't understand you. He's rich, he's good looking, and he's a Worthington.
But secretly, she's sleeping with that rich guy's brother. And they show their engagement party. And during this whole thing, they can't find Christy and they can't find the brother-in-law.
Has anyone seen Christy?
So Linda Blair goes to look for them, and she finds them in the barn fucking on top of hay bales.
I don't believe this.
Which, I'm sorry, is so impractical and unrealistic, because if you ask anyone who's been around hay, or had to throw bales or feed livestock with hay, it is extremely itchy and it will poke through your skin and give you a huge rash. So this whole fantasy about having sex in a hay pile is complete bullshit. Even if you lay down a blanket or something, that shit's still gonna poke through. So Linda Blair finds them, so she finds out that they're having this affair. And she scolds them and says, "Everyone's looking for you. You need to get back to the party." And the brother tries to tell the fiance what is going on, but he doesn't want to listen.
Hey. Just take it easy, relax. Everything's gonna be okay, Jesus Christ. What the hell have you been doing? Rolling around in the barn or something?
And some of the dialogue written in this film is just so terrible and doesn't make any sense. There's a part when Linda Blair is driving into this equestrian area to pick up Christy, and she points a crossbow at her for some reason, and Christy calls her Pocahontas, and then Linda Blair calls her Tonto back.
Get in.
Put it away, Pocahontas.
Oh, anything you say, Tonto.
Neither one of those things has anything to do with the other, except they're both Native American figures, but that's really it. So then we cut to Linda Blair and Christy just sitting in a pool, barely in the water at all, and they're talking about how much she loves Steve, who is the guy she's having an affair with, but she's still gonna marry the brother anyways.
I'm fine. I'm fine. This is ridiculous. Of course I'm gonna marry Bob.
Oh God. So then they're done with their workout, which like I said, just consists of them sitting in a pool, and they hit the showers, well, Christy's character does, and they proceed to have this 5+ minute long montage of her showering and touching herself and fantasize about her and Steve having sex in the hay.
It's your fiance's younger brother.
And it goes on forever. It just keeps on going. Back and forth and back and forth. So then it cuts to outside the gym and they're leaving together, and Steve and his friend Mac have pulled up to pick them up. But before they can jump in with them, this big black van pulls up and grabs Christy and starts shooting in the air. So Steve jumps in the car and starts chasing the van, and there's this high-speed pursuit through the city, and I guess the kidnappers thought that that would be just a great time to rape Christy in the back of the van while they're weaving in and out of cars, and accidents are going on all around them, and they're being chased by police. I mean, what else are you gonna do while you're sitting in the back? There's not much else going on. Really, it's just the driver that has to pay attention. So she's kidnapped, and then comes Cameron Mitchell's big scene. And he yells like once.
I just don't accept it!
And he's talking with his wife and his staff, I guess, about what to do. But he's this very hard-nosed anti-terrorism. We don't give in to terrorist demands. That's very much his platform. So he's like, there's nothing we can do. We have 3 days to give him an answer and then 2 weeks to follow through, but there's nothing we can do because it'll just ruin me politically. I mean, screw my daughter, let her die in Mexico. I need to keep this position.
We don't negotiate with terrorists. I was the one who introduced the goddamn legislation into the Senate.
This isn't a goddamn press conference.
Do you have any idea what this would make me look like if I gave in now? I can't reverse my position. Everything we've stood for would become a farce.
So then we cut to Christy. Poor Christy. The terrorists have her locked up in a bamboo cage lined with hay, and she's completely naked. And something tells me she won't fantasize about sex in the hay for a very, very long time. And then we meet Esteban, who's the leader of this terrorist organization, and all his crew.
What is this?
And these are some of the worst Mexican accents I've ever heard in the movie. And in this scene, he says my favorite line of the whole movie.
I am a priest too now, huh? We don't kill priests.
We don't kill priests. So Linda Blair and Steve and all their friends decide, well, her dad's not gonna do a damn thing about it, so I guess it's up to us. It's up to us yuppies from Beverly Hills to get a bunch of weapons together and sneak across the border into Mexico. They go to their friend Eddie for some weapons and to test them out. The character of Eddie, he's probably my favorite character. He is a quick machine. Any pop culture reference of the late 80s, he says it in this film.
Nice shooting tag! Jeez, you think you used enough dynamite there, Butch? I'm getting a bad feeling about this.
And he also looks exactly like one of the characters from that cartoon, The Littles. You remember that show?
Inside the walls they've always been. You can't stop the littles 'cause the littles don't stop.
Looks exactly like him.
I thought I'd give my feet a rest.
Is even wearing an aviator's cap at one point. It's weird.
N-O spells no.
So Steve steps up to try out this machine gun, and it's really hard to describe his shooting technique because usually when you shoot a rifle like that, you don't reset your body after every shot. It's just bizarre. It's like they didn't have any kind of weapons consultants on this film whatsoever. Ugh. And then they pull out a grenade launcher, which really just shoots fireworks. But then Linda Blair shows up and is sassy to them, and they get sassy back, and she's like, I'm going, and they say, no, you're not, and she blurts out some Spanish and is like, fuck, I ain't going, I'm going with you, and they're like, oh, okay, you can come.
It's about as funny as 5 college students going down to Central America and getting their butts shot off.
There's only 4 of us.
There's 5.
So they pack up their Jeep and little U-Haul trailer full of weapons and sneak across the border into Mexico.
Are you sure this is the right way?
They have no idea where they're going or how they're gonna get there or what they're gonna do when they get there, but they're like, fuck it, let's go. What's the worst that could happen? So the first place that they show up is this little town in Mexico, and there's more hay everywhere.
We have the slightest idea where we are. You're the one with the map.
I don't know what it is with this film and hay, or if it's just an easy and cheap way to dress a set is to just throw a bunch of hay bales everywhere, but there's hay fucking everywhere in this movie. So they get out of the Jeep and they go into what I can only describe as secondhand smoke, the bar. And they quickly realize that they're not very welcome in this town. So they go back outside and are followed outside by all these ruffians who are led by the dude from Tremors.
You think maybe you could loan it to me?
But luck is on their side, because who else happens to be in this town? Well, it's fucking Richard Lynch and his monkey.
Trouble, fat man.
and he's here to help them out. So a fight starts, just a fist fight. But then all of a sudden they're shooting and killing each other. It escalates very quickly. They jump in their Jeep with their little U-Haul and run out of there, but the guys are chasing them in a car. And so the one guy crawls from the Jeep to the U-Haul trailer and grabs the rocket launcher. And I'm like, there's no way they can do this because the blowback is gonna kill every single person in the Jeep. But no, he shoots the rocket launcher and it hits the car that's chasing him and everybody's just fine. So they make camp for the night and Richard Lynch finds them and says, I'm gonna help you.
You go to my place in the morning.
And his name is Bishop, because what else would it be? His name is Bishop, he has a monkey, and he plays the flute. And Richard Lynch actually did play the flute in real life. So that's actually him playing the flute in this movie. And so they're at his house, they're talking inside, and he's telling them this story about a local dignitary that he used to know who was killed by Esteban. And Esteban took this guy, castrated him, decapitated him, and then gave his decapitated head to his thugs to play a game of soccer with.
They tortured him for over a week before they finally killed him. But what you probably didn't read in the newspapers is that they castrated him while he was still alive. And then they cut his head off and used it in a game of soccer.
Yeah. So then we cut back to Christy, poor Christy, still stuck in that cage. But now she has a friend. There's this little person played by the same guy who played Brown Tom in Legend, and he has the absolute worst Mexican accent. It's so bad. It's so bad.
I am not bad.
And he says that he wants to help her, and he gives her some shreds of clothing to put on so she's not completely naked, and he gives her an apple, and then he leaves.
Listen, if your father does as Esteban says, you will be free. So take it easy, okay?
Oh, God. So then we cut back to her friends, and they're just having a good old time. They're drinking, they're dancing and messing around. It's like they're on vacation. Like they forgot about Christy and are just like, hey, this is fun. Let's have some fucking margaritas.
Dance, Eddie!
Well, then some of Esteban's crew come into town on horseback and start shooting up the place. And they shoot back. Except Linda Blair, she hasn't done dick in this entire movie yet. She's just kind of there. She hasn't shot a gun. She hasn't punched anybody. She hasn't done anything. So they kill off or scare most of Esteban's dudes, but they capture one alive, and Richard Lynch interrogates him off camera, and you can hear the dude screaming as he's cutting him with this giant knife. I'm sorry. If I was being interrogated by Richard Lynch, he wouldn't have to use a knife. He'd just have to sit in a dark room and stare at me playing the flute. I'd sing like a fucking bird. Because he says when he's talking to Linda Blair about his flute playing that he does it because it confuses people. And what that sentence translates to is it creeps people out. And so after Richard Lynch interrogates the guy, he finds out where Esteban's camp is. And so he gives them a bunch of weapons that he's had stashed somewhere and mounts this big giant machine gun on top of their Jeep. And so the next morning they're gonna go scope it out and plan their assault. And so the next morning we cut to Christy. Poor Christy.
Help me, please.
And the little man with the bad accent is back to help her again. And he helps her out of the cage and over to some horses, and he's helping her get up on this horse. And remember, she's got some scraps of clothing on, but she's completely nude underneath that. There was no underwear or anything. So he's boosting her up on this horse, and I think this was his game plan all along, but he's boosting her up and his hand slides up to her butt and his finger just disappears. He totally fingers her butthole. Seriously, I think that was his plan all along. I'm gonna help this girl escape so I can put my finger on her beehole.
He's good.
She takes off on the horse and a guy chases her. She falls off the horse and he smacks her and rips her dress and tries to rape her, but Esteban shows up in time and shoots the guy dead. And then he gets mad and smacks her and then rapes her.
You see what happens when you start trouble?
Poor Christy. So we're finally to the big climax of the film. They are gonna go save Christy and try to take out 100 guys about in this encampment. And none of them have any training, except for Richard Lynch. He talks about some military history, but none of them have any training whatsoever, and they're gonna take on 100 guerrillas.
Have I handled firearms?
A little bit. I've shot at the Beverly Hills Gun Club.
This should just go so smoothly.
Oh, God.
There's a couple cool stunts in this sequence. I mean, there's a guy gets set on fire. A guy gets trampled by a bunch of horses. There's a cool part where a guy on a horse jumps over a Jeep as it's exploding. And they're shooting back and forth and shooting back and forth, and they find Christy and they throw her in this car and they're trying to get away, and they get caught in a crossfire in between two trucks, and the people on the trucks have an elevated position and they're caught in a crossfire, and they would be so goddamn dead at this point. but it's a movie and they're not. But so they get out of that, and then Chad McQueen's character dies by slipping on a banana peel. And then Mac's character, he dies because they throw fireworks at him in the form of a grenade. Eddie and Richard Lynch take Christy to this helicopter that Esteban has stashed a little ways away, which it's kind of obvious that they couldn't afford to get their own helicopter and repaint it, so they just rented a helicopter and threw a bunch of mud on it to cover up the numbers and stuff. And Richard Lynch leaves them to go try to get all the others and see what's going on. So Eddie's gonna fly the helicopter, but he gets shot before he can do that.
You know what? For the first time, I've got a really good feeling about things.
But then Steve comes and shoots all them. And calls him a fat fuck.
I just want you to see yourself die. Fat fuck.
You lose, gringo.
And I must say, I will give Steve a lot of credit. Through that entire firefight and running through the mud and the muck and jumping on and off horses, he managed to keep his Nikes so goddamn white.
I don't think she made it.
Steve puts Christy back in the helicopter and they put Eddie in the back. And then Richard Lynch and his monkey show back up.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Up my shoulder.
And they're about to leave, and then Linda Blair is like, hey, don't forget about me.
Let's go, Carla!
She actually did fire a couple shots during the big battle, so she wasn't completely useless. So they all get in the helicopter, and they take off, and it fades to black, and the credits roll. This movie is amazing.
Inflatimate your handy dandy survival kits.
It's amazingly terrible, but it's so goddamn entertaining. I mean, just from the bad acting.
They will kill me.
I know they mean to kill me.
The crazy 80s fashion.
Come on, guys. Can't we talk about something else? Let's have fun.
I've got it. I propose a toast to the best rider this side of Texas.
The ridiculous plot.
Have her father send in a goddamn hit squad. It's done all the time.
Not in Central America, not during an election year.
It has a lot going for it. I would definitely check it out. It's actually on YouTube, completely uncensored, if you want to check it out. I highly recommend it. It's a really, really good bad movie to watch with your friends. Technically, there aren't a huge amount of snafus that jumped out at me. Really, the only one that I really thought was kind of funny is there's this scene in a dance club, and you could tell that they just had people dancing with no music. They just added the music later.
Say, baby, why don't you take me out of this den of degradation? Take me to the house.
Because you can hear the clop, 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 clop of people dancing. It sounds like a herd of cattle.
Why don't you take me out of this den of degradation?
And in these scenes, Linda Blair looks like Christy's mom. She doesn't look like her friend or even remotely the same age as her. She looks like her mom. And also, this film has a theme song. And that theme song is sung by Blair herself. That's gonna do it for this first episode of VHS Spotlight. Stay tuned for more. I've got a lot of tapes to get through. This is Lindsay signing off. I'll check you later.